My name is Sarah. I am 32 years old and have been a nurse for almost a decade. Caring for people has always been more than a profession for me. It is a calling, a commitment to relieving pain and offering comfort to those in need. I dedicate my days to this, putting my soul into every gesture, every touch, every word of hope. But not everyone understands this dedication. I recently separated because my husband never accepted my profession. He wanted to mold me, to fit me into something that would please him, that would fit into the life he envisioned for me. But I could not give up who I am. Over time, I realized that life is much more than what we are taught to accept. I needed to live for myself, and not for someone else's desires. It was then that I began to see the world differently, offering what is most precious to me to those who truly know how to value it. I have always seen myself as a caregiver, a woman who brings security and comfort. But among the cold white corridors of the New York hospital, where the smell of antiseptic mixes with a silence filled with untold stories, I never imagined that one day I myself would need to be cared for. And, even more unexpected, that this care would come from someone who should be under my care. His name was Michael. He was no ordinary patient. He was there for a cosmetic procedure and would need to rest for a few days. But it was not just his presence that drew attention. His eyes, as deep as they were mysterious, seemed to carry secrets that he would never reveal. His smile was rare, discreet, but when it appeared, it lit up something inside me. At first, I saw him as just another patient under my responsibility. But something about him was different. Michael was observant, attentive to my every gesture, every detail. I felt his gaze following me, even when he pretended to be distracted. I noticed the way he waited for me to enter the room, as if my presence were a relief amidst the monotonous hours of hospitalization. My body was no longer a novelty to me. I knew the impact of my curves, how my white uniform, even simple, highlighted details that I could never hide. Over the years, I had learned to ignore the stares, to focus on what really mattered. But with Michael, it was different. He didn't try to hide it. His gaze roamed over me with intensity, unhurriedly, without shame. And as much as I tried to remain professional, I felt a different warmth whenever I was around him. There was something in the air, something that we didn't even need to say in words. It was a silent game, a mutual understanding, an unspoken invitation. I made room for it. Maybe deep down, I already knew that this wasn't just a casual interaction. It was a moment that belonged to us, and that, in some way, would be marked in both of us. "You have a special way of caring for people, Sarah," he said once, as I adjusted the 4 in his arm. "It's like you bring a little light into this place." I smiled, thanking him for the compliment. There was something about the way he spoke, the softness of his voice, that made me feel seen in a way I wasn't used to. It was as if he saw beyond the uniform, beyond the nurse, and saw the woman I was. Days passed, and Michael began to recover. His visits to the hospital became more frequent, and I noticed that he always found an excuse to call me into his room. Sometimes it was to adjust the pillow, other times, to ask about a medication. But I knew that deep down, he just wanted my company. And, as I'd said before, I was enjoying those moments. One night, when the hospital was quieter, he called me into his room. It was dark, with only the dim light from the hallway illuminating the room. He was sitting on the bed, with a book in his hand, but he barely seemed to be reading. "You never stop taking care of others, Sarah?" he asked, closing the book and looking at me with those deep eyes. "That's what I do," I replied, leaning against the door. "And I like it," he smiled, as if he already knew the answer but wanted to hear it anyway. "And who takes care of you?" he asked in a voice so soft that I almost didn't hear the question. It caught me off guard. I had never stopped to think about it. I had always been the caregiver, the strong one, the one who was there for everyone. But at that moment, I felt a lump in my throat, as if he had touched something I hadn't even known existed. "I take care of myself," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. He shook his head, as if he didn't believe me. "Everyone needs someone, Sarah," he said, reaching out his hand to me. "Even you." I hesitated, but eventually I stepped closer. He took my hand, and I felt the warmth of his skin against mine. It was a soft, soothing touch, but at the same time there was a river overflowing as I smiled at him. "You're like a flower in the middle of the desert," he said, looking at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Beautiful, strong, but alone. I didn't know what to say. My mind was in turmoil, and my heart was beating faster than usual. He gently pulled my hand, and I found myself sitting on the edge of the bed, so close to him that I could feel the heat of his body. "I shouldn't be doing this," I whispered, but I didn't move away. "Why not?" he asked, bringing his face closer to mine. "You deserve to be taken care of too, Sarah." And then our lips met. An intense emotion took over me, as if he was trying to convey everything he felt at that moment. I let myself go, forgetting the world around me for a moment. At that moment, I couldn't resist asking him to put the tool to work and polish the precious jewel that was stored away, waiting to be taken care of. As I picked up the tool, I demonstrated my skills, which I had learned with slow and deliberate movements. My movements were calculated. I wanted to do my best so that he would feel happy with my service, and so would I. At one point, he even whispered a low groan, as if congratulating me for reaching the highest level of happiness. I increased the pace as the work continued, almost reaching the end. He looked into my eyes with gratitude and admiration, while a mixture of sweet and salty reminded me of old drinks. I drank a glass practically from the thirst I felt for having finished a job with excellence. It was just an invitation for more elaborate work later. "You are more than a nurse, Sarah," he said, wiping the drops from my face. "You are an incredible woman, and I want to take care of you, if you will allow me." I smiled, feeling a tear run down my face. At that moment, I realized that maybe he was right. Maybe I also needed someone to take care of me. And so, in the middle of those white corridors full of stories, I found something I wasn't looking for, but that came at the time I needed it most. Did you like this story? Leave a comment telling us what you thought, and, if you've ever experienced something similar, share it with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any new content. Here, we always bring life stories, reflections, and real experiences, all with great sincerity. Thank you for watching until the end and for being part of this journey. See you in the next video.